Family disowned me 7 years later, they want me back. Hello everyone. A few months ago a story was posted by SCL31123 and read by Mark. Love you Mark, it brought back my traumatic past. And for months my wife and therapist have been telling me to just post it on Reddit to share my story. My story may be rare, but there are others out there who may need to hear they are not alone and it can get better. So I decided to finally share my past. Please forgive me for the fast storytelling and grammar, as this topic still holds darkness in my head and I just want to get this out. Let's go back 15 years ago. I, 20 am at the time, was starting my final year in college and was getting myself ready to go on to business school or law school. I was on the baseball team, I had a high GPA, I had great parents and an extended family filled with business and law-minded people, and life was good. After baseball practice I checked my phone and it was loaded with like hundreds of missed calls and text messages ranging from "pick up now" and "you monster." I of course was confused as hell and maybe thought it was a family prank. I walk outside to call my mother, and as she picked up screaming, my uncle appeared out of nowhere and sucker punched me in the face screaming he is gonna kill me. I fell right to the ground with my nose bleeding like a hose. My dad was right behind him restraining him by telling him to stop, and he looked at me and told me to get up and get your ass home. That drive home was horrible, my nose broken, bleeding, my eye swelling, and just confused. I walk into the house and my entire family is there. My mother screaming at me asking why? 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 Did you do it? My uncle was screaming to call the cops. I finally just screamed, what the F is happening? Screaming I was punched by my uncle. My cousin, Amy, who was 12 at the time, told the family I saw her during the 4th of July party early in the year when we were alone in the house. I of course said of course I didn't. But no one was hearing me. My dad snapped and punched me right in the gut. That punch took the wind right out of me, I couldn't breathe. My dad told me to get out and leave right now. He had all my clothes in garbage bags and he threw me out the door. I was still trying to catch my breath and finally was able to stand and walk to the front door knocking when my dad swung the door open and pushed me down the steps screaming for me to leave. I at this point was crushed, tears flowing, bleeding, and hurting both emotionally and physically. I loaded my stuff into the old conversion van that was given to me to transport gear and teammates. I called a few teammates and crashed on the sofa for the night. Tried calling my family with no answer for at least a week when finally my dad sent a text basically telling me to leave them alone and that he didn't raise me to be a monster and rot in hell. I cannot type what I was feeling. It was like a cold numbing feeling. A few weeks later the university called me saying my tuition was due. My parents had been helping pay my college tuition. I tried calling, but I was blocked. I didn't have enough in my savings to pay the rest of the year. I went to see if I can get a loan, but I was rejected since I had little income and knowing my parents won't sign for aid. I had to quit the baseball team and find a full-time job to help pay the remaining balance. I found an overnight shift, lived in my van through the harsh winter and made it to graduation. No one showed up or called me. Later that night sitting in the van my mind finally broke. I broke down hard and bought multiple bottles of whiskey and went into the darkest place I've ever been. For 2 years I lived in my van, bounced from job to job, mental health was crushed, bottles of whiskey were my friends, drugs were my comfort, I trusted no one, ran away in fear when I saw a child. The summers and winters were brutal. I am lucky I didn't freeze to death, die from dehydration, or get mugged while sleeping in the van. And if my life couldn't get any darker, the van finally died. The AC and heat that kept me safe was gone. That was it was over. I couldn't go on like this anymore, so I went to the roof of an apartment complex, and climbed to the edge, looked down and was ready to jump. I looked at my phone just praying someone from my family to call or text to save me. I just closed my eyes and was ready to be pain-free. That is when I heard a voice behind me. Stop. I looked behind me and there was a woman running toward me. She was pleading with me to climb down and not to do it. My mind is going a million miles an hour, I just looked at her, my brain is telling me to jump, my body is saying climb down. She extended her hand and begged for me to climb down. And it was like a spirit took over me, I reached out to her and climbed down and collapsed. EMTs were called and took me to the hospital. I spent 2 days in the hospital before being released. As I was walking out I saw the woman that stopped me waiting for me. She ran up to me asking if I was okay. My mind froze and just said no. She asked me if I had any family to come get me. No. Do you have a place to stay? No. I just put my head down and started walking away. Where are you going? Don't know. Well, are you hungry? No. Do you know any other words besides that one? Don't know. Well, you can't just live on the streets tonight. So just come over to my place and I'll cook you dinner. Why? Because you look like you need a friend. Okay. Her apartment was beautiful, books everywhere. Every room had historical paintings, it was like a museum. She introduced herself as Rachel, 22F, she worked at her dad's company. We talked for what seemed like 4 days, but it was only 3 hours. I avoided any talk of my past. I stayed with her for 3 weeks as she helped me get a job at her father's company as a front desk worker. I gave up drinking during that time, and went cold turkey on the drugs. Rachel drove me to work every day, made me breakfast and dinner. We spent a lot of time together in those 3 weeks. I started looking for my own place, telling her she has done enough. She told me to stay. I asked why? Why are you nice to me? I started yelling and crying at the same time. She took my hand and told me to sit, and she tried to hug me, but I pulled away muttering I don't deserve it. She begged for me to stay until I saw a therapist. No, my mind broke again. I guess I was walking in circles muttering before I stopped and realized where I was. I then said yes. For 4 weeks I saw a therapist that Rachel paid for and didn't really open up but talked enough to make strides. Rachel then invited me to her parents' house for her dad's birthday. The party was filled with Rachel's family, the memories of that night racing through my head. I just sat alone most of the time drinking water and finding ways to hide in the bathroom. When we all sat down in the family room, the family kept asking me about my family, my past over and over and over and over again. I snapped. They disowned me for my cousin, which I did not do. No one will ever believe me and I'll just walk this world alone. Was beaten by my own father and my own family, just cast aside into this cold world to die alone. Please let just leave this place, I don't deserve it. Forget I ever came here. I ran to the door and tried to open it when the father came from behind me, grabbed my shoulder, and I collapsed to the floor waiting to be punched. Tears streaming down my face, I slowly opened my eyes and saw her father. Go ahead, hit me, I whimpered. The father, now we will call John, spoke. Son, I look into people's eyes for a living. I see when people bullshit me or being truthful. I can see the hurt and truth in your eyes. Please let us help you. Please stay. I let out a noise I never want to make again. I collapsed into his arms and the whole family gathered around me. I finally felt wanted. The next few years flew by. Rachel and I married. My Phil helped me go to business school. I have a great job at his company, bought my first ever car, my first house, 7 years sober, still am, and was expecting my first baby boy. I was in therapy twice a week, twice a month now. It felt like life was letting me be free. I treat Rachel like a queen that she is. She is the one who reached in the dark to save me. Then came the famous call. I was in my office when my cell phone rang. I didn't look who the ID was and just answered. Hello, Op here. Oh my god, Op. Who is this? It's Mom. Fuck off. I hung up the phone and nearly threw it. The thoughts were racing, I couldn't control it. The phone rang again. I sent it to voicemail. I called Rachel and she drove to my office and she was able to calm me down. My phone was blowing up with calls and texts. I had to shut my phone off. But that night I had to turn it back on, and there they were, the texts and calls like last time. This time it was call us please. I am sorry, forgive me, but it was a message from my mother that froze me. I deleted the message, but it basically went. Please answer the phone, we need to speak and see you. We have always loved you and always prayed for you. Amy, 19F at this point, came forward and told the truth about what happened all those years ago. We are so angry with her and want to make it right. We just wanted to protect her since she was just a kid and thought we were doing right. Please call us. To make it short, after 2 weeks of thought and seeing my therapist every day, I decided I needed to see my parents. I texted the time, the place, and to come alone, no other family members. I wrote down every question I needed to know. My wife and I practiced talking so I could stay calm during the talk, and a plan so if I lost my temper she could quickly get me out of the situation and in place of peace. The day we met at a coffee shop, my mom and dad ran up to me, arms open, and my wife stood in the way and told them no hugs, please sit. My wife ordered me a Coke and ice to chew on while they talked, and held my leg as I began to speak. I began. Why? They explained a few weeks ago Amy called a family meeting and confessed that she lied about what happened to her. She was young and stupid, and just wanted attention and love from family members and strangers. She got to go to Disney World, Europe, big parties, new car, money, etc. She lived a luxurious life while I lived in hell. And over the past year all the fake stories of false allegations and what happens to people who are falsely accused scared her and quickly thought of me, and wanted to find me, but knew that meant telling the truth. Why wasn't I allowed to tell my side? They were running on pure emotion and just wanted to be there for her and her parents. My father apologized for hitting me. He was just so angry at the situation and took his anger out on me and shoved me away when I tried to come back. That's when I dropped the pipe bomb. Do you remember it all? I wasn't even at the fourth party. I was playing baseball in another state. Their faces froze and went white. My mom nearly threw up. My dad telling me no, you were there, ! Right? I showed them a picture of me and my friends of the day. And second, why was my college tuition canceled along with my meal plans? My mom looked puzzled and asked, no, we kept that for you. My dad froze again. I wanted to support my brother. He explained the money that was meant for my school and food he gave to his brother. That is why they went on all those trips and got new cars. My mom screamed. I explained everything above. My mom begged for me to stop talking. My dad looked broken. I explained in detail what my life has become, all my issues and fears of life. I explained how I had to drop out of baseball to find a job. It broke them. People around us seemed to hear this conversation and were giving them the evil eye. I finally asked, so, what is her punishment going to be? She has to apologize. And? She will make it up to you. How? I don't know. How about she lives in a van for 2 years? Or gets disowned? Make a public announcement? Or better yet, how she pays back all the money that was for school and food, or sends us to Disney World, Europe, and buys us new cars? She can't do that? Why? She has her whole life ahead of her, we can't destroy it. She destroyed mine. No, that is diff. What? Say it? No, please stop. Oh, I get it. It is well okay to destroy a life, but when it is time to pay the piper, she gets the worst punishment of all. That was bad, Missy. No, don't do that again. Now let's go get ice cream, right? That was the convo, right? I was done, I had my piece. I stood up and said, you lost your son 7 years ago, he is gone, move on, forget about him and enjoy your life. Since you already did it for 7 years without him. Mom, Dad, goodbye. My wife and I walked out, leaving them at the table in tears. I haven't seen them since. I get phone calls and messages from time to time wishing me well, blah blah blah. From what I've seen on Facebook, Amy went to college but had to pay for it herself with no loans or backing. Her fancy car was taken away and was given a beater car from the 1990s. To be honest, that isn't enough, but I do not care. Maybe someday I will see her in them again, but not now. I still have a lot of healing to do.